What's up everyone, Andrew Baina here, and on today's video we are taking a look at this absolutely ridiculous guitar. So this is the Ghost series from Legator, and what I have here is the G9F, which is of course their 9-string version that is coming out very soon. It's currently on pre-order at the time of filming this video. Before we go any further, I have to give a massive thank you to Johnny Tardulo, the vocalist of my band Carcosa, for co-writing that song that you just heard. It's always a good time writing with Johnny. We come up with a lot of cool ideas, and by the way, he's available for ghostwriting. So if you liked how that song sounded and you're looking for someone to help you co-write a song or get a vocal feature or anything like that, go hit him up. Also, of course, a massive thank you to Legator for sponsoring this video and sending this guitar over to me. Of course, as always, all thoughts and opinions are still my own. I also want to give a special thanks to Auto Audio for partially sponsoring this video. I was using their 1111 plugin for all of the rhythm tones that you just heard, and if you liked how that sounded, go check out the plugin and use the discount code on the screen right now for 50% off plus 20 free impulse responses. Now, with all that out of the way, if you've never seen one of my guitar demos before, what I like to do is show you a full demo mix, which you've already heard. Then we're going to talk about the specs and features of this instrument, show you a few soloed tone clips, and last but not least, tell you my thoughts and opinions on this instrument. So without further ado, let's start talking about the specs of this absolutely ridiculous looking guitar. So as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the Ghost series guitars from Legator. So this model comes in a few different finish options, but I chose to go with the absolutely most insane option because I was like, well, it's a headless 9-string guitar. We might as well go all the way and get the craziest finish we can too, right? So as for the body of this guitar, it is made out of alder. The website actually doesn't say anything about the top, so I'm assuming this is like a very thin veneer on top, which is finished in this ridiculous pink purple fade situation. We also have a single Fishman Fluence modern 9-string pickup right here, a momentary kill switch which actually lights up when you plug the guitar in, as well as a single volume knob which is a push-pull for accessing the two different voices on this pickup. This guitar also has Legator's own headless bridge design down here. It looks pretty standard as to what you'd expect from most 9-string guitars. I am glad that it is a normal saddle and not one where you have to like lock the string in the saddle and the headstock. I've had a few headless guitars like that and I really don't like it. This way is much easier for string changes, so props to them for doing it that way. If you've never restrung a headless guitar before, you basically put the ball end of the string into the saddle and then you twist this knob down here to tune it up. Flipping over to the back of the body, we obviously have a battery compartment for that Fishman Fluence pickup right in the middle there. Moving on to the neck of the guitar, this is obviously an insanely wide neck. It's not thick though, however, which is very important for when you're playing a 9-string. These things are already super wide. The last thing you'd want is for it to also be thick. So this is a set-through construction and a 5-piece neck. The neck is made out of maple and Venge. Flipping the neck over, we have a Richlite fretboard with 24 jumbo stainless steel frets. The scale length on this is 28.5 inches on the high string to 30 inches on the low string. In my opinion, this is an extremely good fan fret design for a 9-string guitar. I've had a few different 9-strings over the years and a couple of them have been 28 inches across the board, and I always felt that 28 inches is fine if you're leaving it in like standard tuning, but if you're dropping it any lower, it's not really going to cut it, so I appreciate that they went for 30 inches on this one in my opinion. Other than that, we also have some inlays. We have mother of pearl inlays which are offset, so you know, on the bass side for the first 9 frets, and then it flips over down here for the high frets, and Legator's inlay on the 12th fret. It's always interesting to see where brands put their logo on headless guitars because obviously normally it would be on the headstock, but you can't do that in this case. In addition to that, we also have Lumenlay side dots on the side right there, and of course it is a headless design and the quote-unquote headstock looks like that. So you lock the strings in their own proprietary headpiece right there. So yeah, that does it for the specs and features of this guitar. Next up, I'm going to show you a few soloed tone clips. For this, I was actually tuning this even lower because as if a C sharp isn't low enough, we took this down to a B and the rest of the strings are in tune as they normally would be. So it's B, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G, B, E. I didn't use the top 2 strings, I think, but you get the point. So let's start off with a high gain rhythm tone courtesy of the Auto Audio 1111 plugin, and then I'll also show you a couple of very small examples of clean tones and lead tones as well. But if you're like me, you're probably here for the heavy high gain stuff, so let's start with that. Okay, last but not least is to give you my thoughts and opinions on this guitar. So, Legator is an interesting brand. They've been around for, I don't know, over 10 years at this point. I feel like they were very popular in the kind of earlier Gent Facebook days. They were one of the few options out there for getting extended range guitars that weren't extremely expensive. So kind of like around the time when, you know, Agile was pretty popular, Legator was there as well, and they were really popping off. So ironically, I just came across this picture from my guitar collection of 10 years ago where I actually had a Legator 7-string guitar, and that's the only other time I've ever owned one. So going from my memory of that over 10 years ago to this is quite a drastic jump. That was the cheapest 7-string available on their website at the time. So this one is much nicer, and it should be because the price is a lot higher. At the time of filming this video, this guitar comes in at $1,700 US, so it is definitely up there in price, but for the specs that you're getting, I feel like it's pretty appropriate. Not only are you getting a headless guitar, you're also getting a very nice finish. You're getting a Fishman Fluence pickup with an extra feature of the kill switch, and like I said, having that you know, extended scale length on the 30-inch for the low string, as well as stainless steel frets. I feel like this is a pretty well-spec'd 9-string guitar. There aren't really that many options for 9-string guitars on the market, so I'm honestly kind of surprised that Legator released not just this, but another Ninja 9-string model this year. Like, I feel like I don't see that many people talking about 9-string, so I'm surprised that they released 2 new models this year, but that's cool. And I feel like at this point, I've tried almost every 9-string on the market from tons of different brands, and I think that this one does feel and play very good. I personally feel like fan frets on a 9-string guitar are absolutely necessary. Having a full 28-inch or 30-inch guitar is really weird and very, very cumbersome, especially on the high strings. Like, you know, if you went 30 inches across the board, then your high strings are really, really hard to play, but the low strings feel great. So having a 28 to 30 is a pretty good middle ground, I would say. The high strings are still a little tight if you're tuning to standard, because obviously a standard, you know, 6-string is normally 25.5-inch scale, so it's a little long, but I feel like it's the best middle ground of playability across the board. As for the actual quality of the guitar, I feel like it's pretty good for the most part. There's definitely a couple of small things with the finish that I personally don't love or think could have been done a tiny bit better. It doesn't affect playability at all, but like I said, I really wish that the finish just cut off with the body here and didn't go over the neck. It doesn't really matter, but, you know, it's just a little aesthetic thing that I noticed. As for the actual finish work, it does seem pretty nice. I can't really see any overbleed, like, you know, the finish doesn't go onto the fretboard or anything like that, which I've seen other bigger brands make that mistake, so that's nice to see. And yeah, everything about it felt pretty good out of the box. I did have to restring the high E string, which is ironic because I didn't even use it. But when I got the guitar out of the bag and tuned it up, the high E string snapped, which, you know, it happens sometimes when a guitar is shipping. Not that big of a deal. I do think that the way that this guitar is restrung is kind of the best available option out there. I've kind of never personally loved restringing headless guitars. I find it to be a little bit tedious, but this bridge design is about as good as it can get. With that being said though, the guitar holds tuning extremely well. I didn't really have to tune it up nearly as much as I thought I would. And another thing to mention is when I play sitting classical, so the tuning pegs rub on my thigh right here, so that's always a concern of mine when playing a headless guitar, is I'm always worried that that's going to kind of knock it out of tune, and in this guitar's case that didn't happen, so that was great to see. So yeah, overall I think that the quality of this guitar is actually really good. There's a couple minor aesthetic things, like I said, that I think could be a little bit better, but it doesn't affect playability at all, and that's going to be very subjective depending on what your aesthetic preferences are. So again, a massive thank you to Legator for sponsoring this video and sending this guitar over to me. It's been really fun to play. Of course, if you're interested in this guitar or anything else from Legator, go check out their website. It's going to be linked in the description and the pinned comment below. Also, again, a massive thank you to Auto Audio for partially sponsoring this video. If you want to get that rhythm guitar tone, go check out the 1111 plugin. Use the discount code on the screen. The link to that is also in the description below. And last but not least, a massive thank you to my Patreon members. If you're interested in guitar tabs, audio downloads, stems, or a shout out on the screen, you can find all of that over on my Patreon page. That's all I have to say. I'll see you soon.